Let's get started. Got to thank Baltimore's Foundation. And excuse me, I've been fighting pollen for a month. Okay? Allergies for a month. Okay, so this is the way I'm talking tonight. Might be better. I'd like to thank the Baltimore Foundation, the Lake City Creative Alliance, the Continuum, the membership, and the sponsorship that we have. And also for y'all coming. Y'all are the loyal members of this society. We're going to be talking about 1947 tonight. The mayor of Lake City in 1947 was Dr. Jamie Cockfield. He was born in 1903 and he died in 1963. The councilman was Mr. R.L. Poston, Mr. Press Grimsley, Mr. Cecil Floyd, Mr. Nettles, Mr. Grover Edgar Whitehead, and Mr. Starvey. To kick off, January the 1st, 1947, Mr. Harry Woodlock said he woke up and he saw a blaze in his front yard, and it was the Presbyterian church. Now, it was not the first time the Presbyterian church burned. It was 1928. Electrical malfunction caused the fire in 1928. Now we find out it was a fire between the ceiling and the roof. So they had to have their services at the across the street at the high school in the auditorium, and had Sunday school in the classroom.
When did they get electricity in that building?
Before 1928. 1925 was when they built it at $50,000.
When did Lake City get electricity?
1914.
So you're saying the church was built with electricity?
Yes. Mr. Paul Poston and Mr. Earl Koontz started the Lake City Gas and Oil Company. I don't know if they was on 52 at the time, but they started and it just ended a couple of years ago. Dr. Rogers, Dr. Grover Cleveland Rogers, who was Eddie and Jimmy Epps' great uncle, started the Rogers drugstore. Now, to this day, I don't know where it was. It said in the newspaper that it was on the corner of McAllister Street and Ackline.
Well, that's way down from Main Street.
Yeah, right.
Way down.
So that makes sense. But in the 1913 Stanford Map Company, it said that John Street was McAllister Street. So apparently it might have been where the bank loft is now. Okay? And the bank loft. Okay. So that's what I was figuring on it being there. And Dr. E.M. Williams had his doctor's office in the back.
Well, his office was over Whitehead's drugstore.
Okay. Van Epps moved his funeral home from, you see the sign here, H. Van Epps, funeral director. He moved it from here to Thomas Street in 1947. Now, the building behind there, that's the block building on John Street, behind the karate studio, is where he kept his caskets. And that's where Earl Holloway and his family lived for a while.
Was it built as a place to keep the casket?
Yeah,
That's what it was built for?
that was what it's built for, yeah. Have you ever stuck your finger where it didn't belong? Or your hand? I did back in 1976. My dad and I were cutting wood, and I put my finger in wood planer, and it went all over the place. These guys, these three guys, on the very same day, trying to crank up a car by starting the fan, the generator, and the fan. And two of the three got the fingers amputated, and one didn't. Ted Fry, which is Johnny Fry's uncle, and Dr. Huggins. And Miss Ada Stackhouse' husband, Tom Stackhouse, was the lucky guy. Okay? And the saying is, never stick your hand in a fan with the motor running. Yeah. Yeah. This is the high school basketball team in 1947. You notice that we got Mr. Wild Bill Lynch here. We got Wesley Floyd right here. Mr. Arnold Graham was right here. Clyde Floyd, Mr. Clifford Gaddy, Ronald Tart, Mr. Randy Gravely, Haggard Floyd, Shay Hagan, excuse me, and Mr. Flanagan. I didn't know he coached. Of course, we have the girls in 1947. We have Miss Louise Evans, who became Cal Godwin's bride, right here. Molly Matthews, that is Spank Matthews' aunt. Martha Jane White, McWhite, excuse me, right here. That's Tootie and Mac's mother, and Nancy Whitlock, who was Ed Whitlock's sister. Dr. Herman sets up his office in the pool room, okay, in 1947 in February. Now it's Brown's locksmith's office. He gets a postgraduate fresher course from Duke University. He's a Citadel graduate. He gets a degree from the South Carolina Medical University. the open air market, the fish market. Two young men, Lyman Askins and Marion King. Mr. Askins is the grandson of Mr. Sam Askins, who is a pioneer of Lake City. Mr. Sam Askins opened up one of the first mercantile stores in town along the railroad track. And Mr. Marion King was Miss Frances Fawcett's uncle. Mary Frances Fawcett wrote the two books about her memories of Lake City. It was 2 books, yes. She wrote 2. It was also the site of Hotel de Dog at first. No, at first it was a bottling plant, the Coca-Cola bottling plant. And then Hotel de Dog. Hotel de Dog went down the street, and Dr. Leak was there for 1 year. He died in 1948.
When did the Coca-Cola plant close in Lake City?
Huh?
When did the Coca-Cola plant close in Lake City?
About 1925. They didn't close it, sold it to the Sumter bottling plant. That's where Sumter gets their bottling plant franchise from Lake City. Seems like the girls get left out. The boys get gold charms, and some of them were Willie Lynch, Randy Gravely, Arnold Graham, Wesley Floyd, Portia Hagen, Clyde Floyd, and Billy Bird Williams. Billy Bird Williams was the grandson of Dr. Williams. Ashton Williams' son.
That was Judge Williams.
Judge Williams, right, his son. Okay, right. Okay, reading this article, I went back last time, and it said the 6th annual Fields Day, but this says the 5th. So I had to dig into records and found out during Mayor Dazale's administration, he first started Fields Day. And his administration was from 1932 to 1936. And this was James Vernon Epps on this bicycle float. And he won first prize, of course. So you can't trust the media, you know. But it's a big thing for having Fields Day in Lake City in the 30s and the 40s.
Is that a Pontiac automobile sign
Yes,
in the back of that corner of that picture?
yes,
There was a Pontiac dealership there.
yes.
Nettles.
It was Nettles Pontiac dealership. On Main Street. Yeah, it had a lift. They would take the cars up and work on them and drop them down.
Well, they had a ramp.
They had a
They
ramp.
had a ramp that took them down. They had a big door and a ramp that they would roll down. And before they remodeled those buildings, the lift was still in there. It was massive.
Great now.
Huh?
That's great. That's great to know. Okay, Mr. Douglas Rogers, Eddie Epps, Jimmy Epps, and Karen Epps' great uncle ran the Green Frog, had a big sign a neon sign saying the green frog jumps. And that's where we get the green frog down street from this advertisement. I mean, it had a speaking system, an intercom speaking system in it, and had a thing for music. So you could put your money in and you could play your music. The sad thing about this was he opened it up in April and he died in August of the same year. It closed in 1948. He was 34 years old and he had a heart problem. 34 years old and he died.
He had a what?
He died from a heart attack, actually. The baseball team, this is losing the award, J.D. McElveen. This guy in the back here is C.D. Prosser. Mr. Godwin. Bill Lynch. There's a bunch that we'll know more and more about as we go along. Arnold Graham, actually, I'm giving away one of the slides. He signed up to pitch with the Yankees. Okay. The Baptist Church completion. Since a bunch of us are Baptists by birth, okay, used to play in the basement. Used to have Boy Scout meetings in the basement. Okay, 1947, if you notice, this color brick and this color brick is different. This is the basement, and up here was the educational building at one time. Had 14 classrooms.
Why was the brick a different color? Why was that?
Huh?
Why was the brick a different color?
I don't know. I don't know that. Upstairs here, as I can remember, having the junior class upstairs at one time. Mr. Joe Dew taught the junior class at one time at the Baptist Church.
There I went to classes in those rooms.
Okay, yeah. The Biometal Lead formed in 1947 with Hartsville, Bennettsville, Bishopville, Camden, Sumter, Lake City, and Florence. And they sold stock. The total stock was $5,000. And Mr. Floyd in 1948 bought $100 worth. That's Mr. Wesley's daddy. Yeah, right. Okay. And each share was $10, so he bought 10 shares of it. This is a picture I got out of the 1949 annual of the baseball field behind the high school, or what we call the junior high, when we were growing up. It was a multi-use field. You can see the baseball field here, and then the football field here.
My dad, of course, our house was back over in that back corner.
Your house is right
My
there.
dad said when he was real young, that they would knock the balls over our house.
Good Lord.
Huh?
Yeah.
And that was a home run, of course.
You get course.
That's a long way.
That's a very long way.
Is that the roof of your house right there in this corner?
No. Miss Carol, your house is over here. Okay. Out the picture. I think this is the Johnson house, if I'm not mistaken. Mr. William Johnson, his father's house is here. And Arnold Graham, high school kid, pitching for the Biometal Lead. I had to put these two pictures together. One was on one page, one was on the other page.
That's a cool picture.
Yeah. Herbert Rollins. This might not be the last time I talk about Mr. Herbert. But Mr. Herbert was the only one, like I said before, is the only athlete to have 16 letters in collegiate. He sets a record for collegiate in South Carolina. In 1943, he plays football. He is drafted and goes in the Army because he has a bum knee. After 3 months, he's discharged. And Mr. J. Paul Trueluck asked him to coach. And he didn't have a college diploma for 2 years. He went back and finished up his senior year. Somebody asked me if G. Moore or Mr. Herbert played against each other. The only way they could have was if the schedule, the PC and Clemson's schedule would have been the same. So I really don't know. But he's amazing. Walter Wells Collins, he goes down to Miami and he comes up with 2,900 poems while he's down there. Now, he would come up with a poem off the cuff. A lot of folks had poems that he made up. And sometimes the first word in each line would be a person's name or a business or something else that the person asked him to write about. My sister Claire had the experience of meeting Wells Collins at our house. He was tuning our piano and took a liking to my sister Claire.
It was hard to get rid of it.
Is that how you made a living up poems? Or you-
Yeah, he would just write a poem. He was punch drunk. He was a boxer too. And he became punch drunk. Punch drunk. He got it, yeah, from boxing, yeah. Yeah. He was very talented.
He was a Citadel graduate.
Yeah. And this is one of the poems he wrote about being down in Miami. I think he was homesick to come back to Lake City.
He also did a radio show.
He did, yeah. Had a radio show.
Where he would read
Abel Tommy. He opened up his photo shop in Lake City. I need your help. In 1947. It says that he opens up and it's located on the second floor of the Godwin building above Godwin's shoe store on Ackline Avenue. I don't know where that is.
That where Carol Godwin had his sporting goods show?
This is 47.
This is in 47. So I have no clue. So if you ever heard of Godwin's building, which is not Janet, that was the Whitlock building. Have no idea. So we had to further investigate. And Abe had 3 children, you know, David, Dickie, and Karen. And then they moved to Sumter. This is the faculty, the principal and superintendent. Mr. J. Paul is superintendent, I think, until 1963 or 4. Joe Dew, Mr. Rack Whitlock, Dr. Evans, Mr. Bowen, and Mr. Eady. Just 5 people on the board at the time. The faculty in 1946 and 47 did not change. This is the high school class of 1947, the seniors. I didn't take individual pictures because the fact is that on each page you had 3 or 4 large print, so I couldn't put them together for you. But I do have the names. Okay? Well, Mr. Richard Cook was a senior 3 times.
Why was he a senior 3 times?
I have no idea. Okay. And this was at graduation. They sung, the girls and the boys sung, actually. This is Betty Jean Godwin when she was little. That happens to be my sister Claire. Emmett Patrick, Albert Daniels, Asbury Williams, Butch Floyd, I think, I'm not sure. J.P. Matthews. This is Miss Sarah Louise Evans Godwin. Sylvia McKenzie. Now, if you'd like to have a print of something that was stamped, let me know. And I'll give you a print of it anytime. Remember, 1st of January, 1947, the Presbyterian church is burned. In June, they can get back into church. 6 months to build a church, the inside of the church. The organ was burned, so I had to replace the organ. They had to replace sanctuary. So the major work was done within 6 months. It's amazing what they could do. And now it takes forever. Mr. Gene Moore, he and Tate Braid Boy. Mr. Moore is right here. Tate Braid Boy's here. And this is Jimmy Godwin here. And when Mr. Moore told me, he said that when Mr. Tay and Mr. Moore came to town with the bear, everybody piled on the truck, claiming they killed the bear. And they danced around, they had a big parade down Main Street and went to the depot where I think Abe Tommy took their picture. Traffic lights. Now we had one on Main Street at the railroad track, had one at McAllister and Main. Now they're gonna put one at Thomas and Church Street. They just took it down a year or so ago. And then they were talking about putting one in a congested area at Williamsburg in Maine. Thank God they didn't. Yeah. Yeah, they're right there at the house. Fire. I remember in 1934, we have at the Tulip Hotel, the Kiwanis Club and the Rotary Club, the presidents, Mr. Nettles and Mr. Louis Probst Sr., talked to each other across the room on the dial system. Well, that dial system failed on the 21st July, 1947. Now, right here was the first exchange, the telephone system. And when Greg Tommy and Bill Whitlock got their T-shirt company one time, they found remnants of an old system, telephone system, upstairs next door, above the pirate T-shirt. And then the third exchange was at Church Street.
Did you get the old phone system from them to put in the museum?
Huh?
Did you get the old phone system from Greg?
No, that was before my time. Yeah.
So you still got it?
I don't know if it's up there or not. The IGA on Saul Street. Mr. C.A. Timmons, which is Mr. Herbert and Dr. Thad and Dr. Charles Timmons' father, and Mr. David Boodle, Miss Rose Boodle's husband, ran this store on Saul Street. I can remember going with Mama to the IGA on Saul Street. Yeah. High school faculty. Actually, it hadn't really changed that much. And Miss Sarah Hagan, she wasn't Sarah Hagan Rollins yet, but soon be. Miss Annie Myrtle Bell. Everybody had Miss Annie Myrtle Bell. Hazel Tomlinson, everybody had Miss Hazel Tomlinson. Ear Lake Baker, little short. Miss Ear Lake Baker, Miss Don Baker. Mr. Annan, Miss Ritten Baker, Miss Ada Stackhouse, and Mr. Edgar Whitehead. Not changed much. Yeah. And this is a picture of the faculty of the high school. Okay? Olin Powell. Miss Lila Myers taught us biology. Miss Ruth Green. She wasn't Miss Ruth Green yet, though. Miss Lizzie. Miss Emily. Coach Flanagan. Miss Flanagan. And this would be Mary Lawrence Smith. No? Who?
Lizzie Gladly.
Miss Cravley's right here. Okay?
I don't look like Mary Lawrence Smith.
No, it doesn't.
No, that's not her. Okay.
It doesn't look like her.
Yeah. No, it doesn't. Okay.
Which one is Mary Lawrence Gaddy?
I don't see very well.
I don't know. Couldn't tell you, Jamie. I'm sorry.
She's next. No. Yes,
Mr. Jack Starr. Mr. Lewis Flanagan. This is in August. That picture was taken before August. A week before Mrs. Schuyler, Coach Schuyler, was hired, Mr. Flanagan quit. He was coaching football, basketball, and baseball at the time. He was a Furman graduate and also from Florence. Said he was very popular. He was in the Marine Corps. And you didn't have to be a college graduate back then to teach. It says that he had to finish up his course this summer, but was already hired. So,
But it says,
he was a veteran.
but in order to graduate,
okay,
read the last line.
okay. Okay, I'm wrong. Okay. The Probst Theater. In 1947, we actually had two theaters, the Ritz Theater and the Probst Theater. I could not wait until 1 o'clock on Saturday because Mama had to go back to the bank and she would give me my quarter and my pass, and it was like going to heaven. You could get in for a dime if you had a pass. You could buy popcorn for a nickel. You could buy a sugar daddy that lasted the whole time and a Coke. Yeah. Same experience along. Well, Sam had got in free, of course. But the school bus, but the bus station was right here at the time. But in 1947, they asked if they could move the bus station where it was on McAllister Street. A lunchroom, a bus station, football team 1946. They had a pretty good year. Same folks that played basketball, played baseball, played football. Zeke Ward, would you believe that he was that skinny at one time? Six and 1. Only loss was at Mullins. And Mullins won Class B, which we were in Class B for the state championship. The band, music was always important in the lives of Lake City. We had Mr. Willie Cook, who was the president of the band. Mr. Jack Dazzell's son, Jack. And I could tell you a story about Mr. Jack and Mr. Harry. Won't I do it now while y'all read this? Mr. Harry told me that they organized a little band in Lake City. And Harry had the tuba. Mr. Jack Dazzell had a trumpet. A couple more guys had different instruments. And they went to Florence to audition to the Turboville band, which must have been fantastic at the time. So Mr. Harry had to ride on a running board with his tuba and hold on all the way to Florence. So they did the audition, and Mr. Turboville told, and Mr. Harry didn't know anything. He was humming through the tuba. He didn't know any notes at the time. He was a great clarinet player, though, at the time, really. And he said, yeah, but you could tell the tuba guy not to come back. So that's the story about Mr. Harry and Mr. Jack. Yeah. Dr. White was in the band. Mr. Davenport, which was your manager for the Sparrows.
His son played drums.
Yeah. You done? Smallpox. Remember the vaccine. I can remember when it got almost ripe. You know, the scab would form. A lot of mamas would put the Band-Aid over it, you know, so it wouldn't fall off. We had one case, so we had an academic in town, so we had to get vaccinated. This is 1947, of course, though. A new enterprise, a bakery, came to town. I don't think it lasted maybe 2 or 3 years because Rollins and Hagen opened up their business here. This is where Woody Fagan's place is down the street. And right here would be Miss Hagen at Sonny Hagen Beauty Salon here in this yellow building. And he had a special here from Charleston, pies and cakes and stuff like that. Wedding anniversaries and stuff. The Cub Scouts Mr. Murcaps and his wife organized the Cub Scouts in 1947. This is Mr. Murk. This is Jimmy. This is Asbury Williams. I think this is David Green. Billy Haskins. Harold County. I tell you, Lake City was a thriving community back in the 40s and 50s and 60s. The cutest ones are born in 1947. Clay Swinson emailed me this picture and said, I double dare you. Put it on the next history fields. I said, you got a bet, buddy. So this is Clay, Dan Bushard, and I was 3 years old at the time. So thank you all for coming tonight. Next time it'll be in May. Since we have art fields coming up, we'll have it in May. Thank you all again. Have a great night.